Susține discursuri în întreaga lume la diverse conferințe, evenimente, dar și organizații, abordând teme precum gândirea viitorului, viitorul muncii, dezvoltarea leadership-ului și distincția, precum și leadership-ul în domeniul inteligenței artificiale, dar și al tehnologiei. Este un personaj în sine, abia aștept să vedem ce ne dezvăluie. Pregătiți și întrebările, pentru că vom proceda la fel. Doamnelor, domnilor, Onyi Anyado, alături de noi.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, or good afternoon. Anywhere I go around the world, I always do the following. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. Okay, this side was okay. Let me go over this side. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. All right. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. If you're happy and you know it, and you really want to show it, if you're happy and you know it, clap your feet. All right. First and foremost, may I say thank you to Duru and the team. For the hospitality. It's been absolutely fantastic. So a little bit about myself. My name is Onyi Anyado, global leadership speaker, corporate trainer, and futurist. And the title of my talk is The Era of Creative Distinction. What's your leadership distinction? So here's me on social. That's a selfie of me 5 years ago. So, all right, 10 years ago. So please feel free to connect. On Instagram, take some pictures, take some videos, take some text, @ me, follow me, let's connect. So a little bit about myself. I was born and raised in Hackney, East London. Anyone been to London before? Okay, a few of us. London's a place where you say, good morning. What did you say? You know, here in Romania, you say good morning, and someone says good morning. So very friendly people. So I was born and raised in a 2.4 family. My mom, my dad, my sister, and myself. Unfortunately, at a very early age, my dad left. So for the majority of my childhood years, it was just me, my mum, and my sister. So coming from a Nigerian background, my mum was very strict. Any Nigerians in the house? Diversity? Okay, it's only me. Fair enough. So my mum, being the best mum in the world, very strict. I had to be a doctor, a lawyer, or pharmacist. So coming from an interesting background, went to good secondary school, college, and university. I didn't know what I wanted to become in life. But the only job I could saw myself doing, as my mum wanted me to come, was become a doctor, a lawyer, or a pharmacist. Unfortunately, when I got to the second year of university, I was studying management and marketing. I dropped out. So I was a young man with no purpose. I didn't know. I was just, drifting about. Unfortunately, in that 10-year period, 6 of my friends, I wasn't really a bad boy, but 6 of my friends got murdered, and I nearly got shot dead too. Obviously, I didn't get shot dead. If not, I'd be a ghost, and ghosts don't wear like blue blazers. So fast forward now, 2024, I'm a global leadership speaker, a corporate trainer, and a futurist. So as a global leadership speaker, I speak on different platforms, different organizations around the world on various topics: leadership development, organizational development, brand distinction. As a corporate trainer, I coach and I train leaders and entrepreneurs on all things learning development. And as a futurist, it's a combination of both roles. So I coach and I train leaders how to achieve tomorrow's distinction today. Why? The future you're not thinking about has already started. So we're in very interesting times, the era of creative distinction. And so who is the yardstick employee? Every single one of you employees, definitely, whether it's in leadership or management, but who is the yardstick employee? So in 2013, I said the following: an employee is a leader of excellence, trailblazer, and pioneer who constantly brings change to their organization. An employee is a leader of excellence, trailblazer, and pioneer who constantly brings change to their organization. An employee is a leader of excellence, not a leader of mediocrity, but a leader of excellence, trailblazer, and pioneer who constantly, that's one of the interesting words, brings change to their organization. So 2020 wasn't just a new decade, in my opinion, in my humble opinion. It was also the start of a new era of disruption. We saw with the pandemic, that was 3 years in the making. We saw with the Russian-Ukraine war, we saw the cost of living. We're seeing so much. We're seeing the exponential growth of AI. And with AI, as some of the great speakers have mentioned, we haven't seen anything yet. But disruption actually isn't a bad thing. You know, sometimes when we hear the word disruption, we think, oh my gosh, it's the end of the world, disruption, disruption. Disruption actually not a bad thing. So as leaders that we are, as employees that we are, we have to realize what is the yardstick 21st century leader? Who is or what is the yardstick 21st century leader that every single one of you, every single one of us have to become? So we see that an employee is the leader of excellence. So for me, as a leader myself, it's all about learning, it's all about understanding, and it's all about applying. So, you know, in the UK, when you go to a post office, they say cashier number 1. So what's the first milestone or the first yardstick, the first pillar for the 21st century leader? So in 2015, I said the following. Distinction in leadership isn't about me, myself, and I. Distinction in leadership is about him, her, and us. Distinction in leadership isn't about me, myself, and I. Distinction in leadership is about him, her, and us. As the previous speaker just mentioned, it's all about community, common unity, coming unity. As I mentioned, there's been a massive shift since 2020 with the COVID, etc. So more than ever before, your department, your team, your organization has to be community-based. You as a leader in 2024 and beyond, you have to be legacy-driven. You have to be a legacy-driven leader. So it's interesting, when famous people die, we say he left a legacy, she left a legacy. But as a leader in 2024 and beyond, you don't have to be dead to leave a legacy. So the first pillar for the yardstick 21st century leader is distinction in leadership isn't about me, myself, and I. Distinction in leadership is about him, her, and us. So as a CEO, as a CFO, as a senior management team, wherever you're heading, the team, the department, the organization has to be going in the same direction. So distinction in leadership isn't about me, myself, and I, but rather is about him, her, and us. Pillar number 2, please. Distinction in leadership leadership isn't about age, but rather leadership is about influence. Leadership is about impact. Who can guess the third I? So leadership isn't about age, but rather leadership is about influence, impact, and... Who said that? Wow, give a round of applause. Wow, that was a good one. That was quick. So leadership isn't about age, but rather leadership is about influence, impact, and inspiration. So it's not how old you are, it's not how young you are, it's not how long you've been in your organization or department, but rather leadership is about influence, impact, and inspiration. Question: before you can influence, impact, and inspire your team, your organization, your department, the world, your industry, etc., who's the first person you have to constantly and strategically influence, impact, and inspire? Oh, everyone said it. Yourself. So more than ever before, isn't it interesting that the first key was, it's not about me, myself, and I, it's about him, her, and us. But now it's about you have to consistently and strategically influence, impact, and inspire yourself. Because before you can influence, impact, and inspire your team, your organization, your department, etc., if you're coming from an empty vessel, it's going to be impossible. So leadership isn't about age. You know, I've been in this industry, speaking, coaching, training for nearer 14 years. I know I look very young. I know I look like a 25-year-old, 14 years, etc. But it's not about age, but rather it's about influence, impact, and inspiration. Pillar number 3, please. Distinction in leadership isn't a mindset. Distinction in leadership is a state of mind. Distinction in leadership isn't a mindset. Distinction in leadership is a state of mind. I know some of you are wondering, what's the difference between a mindset and a state of mind? I don't know. But let me just check my notes. I ain't joking. So distinction in leadership isn't a mindset. Definitely in Western Europe and parts of America, but definitely maybe Europe as a whole, before the pandemic, it was wake up in the morning, rush to work, sit in front of a computer, whatever. That's a mindset. There was nothing wrong with that necessarily, but I think more than ever before, and the previous speaker and the one before that actually mentioned it, actually now it's more employee experience. There's more than this, waking up and rushing to work and sitting in front of the computer. There's now employee well-being. So mindset is, que sera, sera, whatever will be, will be. A state of mind is the ability and the opportunities, the ability to see opportunities and possibilities in the midst of obstacles and problems. Questions, because I want to make it as interactive as possible. Who believes they're going to be still working in the next 5 years? Raise your hands. Okay. Who still thinks they're going to be working in the next 10 years? Raise your hands. Okay. Who wants to just retire to the Bahamas or something? Raise your hands. I know. Me too. Who thinks they're going to be still working in the next 15 plus years? Okay, that's interesting. So on average, we'll say maybe 10 years. Nothing wrong with that. So it's important, you heard Bahamas on the holiday, everyone got excited. So it's important as leaders in 2024 and beyond that you need to shift from having a mindset that sees only one thing to a state of mind. And having a state of mind means you're an agile thinker, I'll speak about shortly, a future thinker, and a disruptive thinker. So when you have a state of mind, wherever you find yourself in your organization, whether you have a state of mind, it's being an agile thinker, it's being a future thinker, and it's obviously being a disruptive thinker. Because whether you like it or not, disruption is going to come to your organization. Whether it's AI, whether it's Gen Z, whether it's more experienced workers, whether it's cutbacks, disruptions are coming. There's nothing to be necessarily scared of. The next pillar. So as a leader, it's important that you have 3 levels of sight. How many levels? All right, 3 levels of sight. Hindsight, foresight, and farsight. Hindsight, foresight, and farsight. Anywhere I speak around the world, I always tell my audience or share with my audience, the future you're not thinking about has already started. So, Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, they're not in 2024, they're 10, 15, 20 plus years in the future. So the future you're not thinking about has already started. So, I like to speak in practical terms. So, for example, your industry, whatever organization or industry your job profession is, not now, maybe on your lunch break or when you go back to your hotel or your homes after the next couple of days, think about what are the future trends in my industry? What are the 3 to 4 jobs, the future jobs in my industry? Because if you're going to be working in the next 5, 7, 10, 15 years, there's going to be such a dynamic shift. And rather than getting caught left behind, it's important and critical that you're ahead of the trend. So a practical thing you can do, and I like to leave with you, is to think about the future trends in your industry, the future jobs in your industry, and think about how can I now develop myself as a leader? Is it more training? Is it more qualifications? Is it getting more experience? So when the future comes, you're already future ready. Does that make sense? And I give an example. So when I started off in the industry, I started off in education, schools, colleges, universities, because obviously I love young people, I serve young people, etc. In 2018, I knew by revelation a shift was coming. Of course, I didn't know it would be the COVID. So because I knew a shift was coming, what did I do? Because I saw the future, I shifted my business model. I pivoted my business model to more corporate stuff and, of course, adding value on a global level. If I didn't do that in 2018, I wouldn't be here now speaking to all of you. So it's important as a leader to have 3 levels of sight, hindsight, going to the past and thinking about what experiences have I gone through, what experiences can I learn from that can now enable me for the future of now. And I give another practical example. So during the lockdown in 2020, I was reading articles, magazines, everything. And I came across an article on 10 businesses that developed during a recession, of course, in America specifically. And I found out about IBM that during the during the recession in the 1930s, when many industries, many factories were being laid off, the chairman at the time said, I'm not going to lay off any staff, I'm not going to close any factories. And his board of chairmen or the shareholders would say, no, you have to close the factories, you have to get rid of the staff. But he was adamant. I think his name was Mr. Watson. He was adamant. If he didn't take that form of resilience, IBM wouldn't be in where they are now in the 21st century. So it's so important to think about hindsight. What are some of your experiences, whether good or bad, you can use as a platform to see the future? So hindsight, foresight, and farsight. The future you're not thinking about has already started. And as the previous speakers mentioned, AI. AI is nothing to be scared of, but AI is coming at an alarming rate. So I'd rather all of us be ready, future ready, when it comes to all things AI. The next thing I want to speak about is about becoming more agile. So I came up with this concept in, I think it must have been 2014 or 2015. So it's a bit of an oxymoron. Agile essentially is accelerate gradually, incorporate leadership excellence. It's an oxymoron. Accelerate gradually. That's, go faster, go slow. That's essentially it. As you go to work in the following week or the following days, as you think about the future, take your time. Enjoy the journey, but understand things are happening at an alarming rate. Things are happening at an alarming rate. Essentially, the global village is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. If you would have told me 5 years ago I would be speaking to maybe 200, 300 plus people in Romania, I would have said not in a million years. If you would have asked me 6 months ago, do you see yourself speaking in Romania in a HR conference? I would have said yes, because I had no choice but to become agile. So as leaders, it's important to think fast, but at the times take gradual steps towards the end goal. And incorporate leadership excellence. How do we incorporate leadership excellence? So I did mention about excellence and the future of now. So for me, my message of cutting-edge distinction, I incorporated excellence and branding and came up with the following concept. So we've heard about branding. I remember must have been 2014. I was watching 2 YouTube videos. An American Asian lady, fantastic speaker, she was speaking about branding, and a Jewish gentleman, very charismatic. And I listened to them, I think they were both 45 minutes, an hour, 2 hours in total, and not one of them mentioned actually what branding is. So I sat down, I was thinking, but what actually is branding? So in 2015, I came up with the following concept. Branding is not just a product, it's also a way of life, an idea. Branding is actually leadership. Branding is not just a product. It's also a way of life, an idea. Branding is actually leadership. So it's interesting. We mentioned we understood what leadership is. Leadership isn't about age, but rather it's about influence, impact, and inspiration. Distinction in leadership isn't a mindset, it's a state of mind. So branding isn't the product or service that your organization or your company serves or sells, etc. It's also a way of life, an idea. But what is the way of life and the idea is the culture of your organization. Ladies and gentlemen, whatever role, whatever position you find yourself in, it's critical that, even if you're not senior manager, that you drive the culture of the organization. And I've worked with hundreds of organizations around the world, and it's interesting, when I sit down with a senior management team and ask them, okay, write down the vision of the organization. Write down the culture of the organization. If there's 5 leaders, 3 of them will say one thing, 2 of them will say another thing. So already, there's not one vision, there's division. There's more than one vision. And as we know, if there's division, the organization can't grow, it can't develop. So branding is not just a product, it's also a way of life, an idea. Branding is actually leadership. So think about, what's the culture of your organization? Is it employee-led in a sense where well-being? Is it innovative? Or is it a fixed mindset? It's so strict, it's so authoritative that no one can't breathe. So think about it when you go back to your relative offices maybe this week or next week. Think about, what's the culture of my organization? How can I drive positive change? And even if you don't believe you have the capacity to drive change, think about, okay, let me sit down with my manager or the managers and think, what's the culture of our organization? Is everyone aligned together with a culture? Because if we're not aligned together with a culture, it's impossible to grow. So branding is not just a product. It's also a way of life, an idea. Branding is actually leadership. So that's on a corporate level. But also on a personal level, I'm sure some of you have heard it before, that you are your brand. Every single one of you represents your brand as an individual. And as we've mentioned, and some of the previous speakers have said, the world is changing, disruption is coming, AI is going to be growing at an exponential rate. So you have to think of yourself as an individual, excuse me, what does my brand represent? Do I represent excellence? Do I represent innovation? Do I represent value? So one of my values that represents my brand is timekeeping. I despise lateness. I hate lateness with a passion. That's, as a professional speaker, I can't afford to be late. I was here at 6 o'clock. Well, I wasn't here 6 o'clock in the morning, but I was awake at 6 o'clock in the morning, ready, willing and able. So think about you as an individual. What's my brand distinction? Does it align with the culture of the organization? So if your organization is, for example, innovative and is disruptive, are you innovative and disruptive? Now, you don't have to do, 10 steps to become a disruptive leader, but if you know, oh, okay, as a leader, I need to become more disruptive, you can listen to podcasts, you can read articles, you can join communities on LinkedIn to become even more disruptive. So branding is not just a product, it's also a way of life, an idea. Branding is actually leadership. And your brand will distinguish you. No brand, no distinction. So dear leader, let me make it personal. Your brand is what will distinguish you. No brand, no distinction. So as a leader in 2024 and beyond, because the future you're not thinking about has already started, think about how I can develop my brand more. And again, that could be listening to podcasts, becoming more innovative, doing more training, coming to conferences like this, asking questions, joining community groups. Think about, okay, how can I develop myself more? Because if Romania as a country, maybe they're going to get more foreign investment, or companies are going to develop more, there's going to be a pool of staff or pool of employees that are going to be well sought after. And it's important now more than ever before to have so much value in yourself as a leader that your brand speaks for you. So your brand could be that you're a solution provider, that when there's issues in the office or in your department, you know how to think about issues properly. You know how to think about solutions quickly. So in your own time, if you go online and look at the 25 skills of the future from the World Economic Forum, it's interesting, 75% of them have to do with thinking. 75% of the skills of the future, which has already started, has to do with thinking. So your brand is what will distinguish you. No brand, no distinction. And for me, when I first started off as a professional speaker, I promised myself two things. One, I would never call myself a motivational speaker. Nothing wrong with that, but at the time, there were so many motivational speakers saying the same thing, never give up, be the best you can be. Nothing wrong with that, but I knew there was more to it. And two, I promised myself I will never quote anyone, but rather I will constantly be quoted. So I take pride that all this is my own material, and I've been quoted on podcasts, in various books, by other speakers. That's my brand distinction. So as a leader, as an employee in 2024, think about what can distinguish you to stand out in your organization, in your department. And some of you might think, oh my gosh, if I stand out, no one won't like me, or people might think I'm being aggressive, or no, don't think that. Remember the difference between a mindset and a state of mind. So dear leader, your brand is what will distinguish you. Your brand is what will distinguish you. No brand, no distinction. And I created the 3 V's of your brand distinction. Your 3 V's, or the 3 V's. Your vision, your values, and your voice. Your vision, your values, and your voice. So as a leader in 2024, in your organization, in your team, in your department, what's your value that you bring? What's your voice? Is your voice misery, mayhem, and madness? Or is it leadership, legacy, and light? So your voice as a leader in 2024, the 3 M's, is it misery, mayhem, and madness? It's like you're always, not you, but somebody's always complaining. They're always complaining. Or is it the 3 L's? Is it leadership, is it legacy, and is it light? So the 3 V's is your vision, your values, and your voice. So we mentioned the values briefly, but your voice, you're saying something. Even online, whether you're posting something on LinkedIn, you're saying something. So be excited and enjoy the fact that you've actually got a voice. So use it where appropriately. So your brand is what will distinguish you. No brand, no distinction. So I speak about the 3 C's that every leader needs in 2024 and beyond. Have you noticed I keep on talking and beyond, because before you know it, it's going to be Happy New Year 2025. It's like, oh my gosh, where's 2024 gone? So the 3 C's are critical thinking, collaborative thinking, and creative thinking. Critical thinking, collaborative thinking, and creative thinking. So how, as a leader in 2024 and beyond, excuse me, can you be a critical thinker, or more of a critical thinker, more of a collaborative thinker, and more of a creative thinker? So I'll take the creative thinking aspect of it. So in 2015, I said the following: dear leader, your creativity will come from your observation, your desperation, or your acceleration. Dear leader, your creativity, your disruptive value as a leader in 2024 and beyond will come from your observation, your desperation, or your acceleration. So when I'm talking about your observation, what problems do you see in your industry, in your organization, in your department that needs solving? So you have to be that individual that thinks about, okay, let me solve this problem with the help using AI, with meetings, with word of mouth, etc. So it comes from your observation, it comes from your desperation. And when I'm talking about desperation, I'm not really using it in a negative context, but I'm talking about you're desperate for the next level. Because in life, there's a next level. I mean, I remember when I first started off, I first started speaking to nobody at conferences, well, not conferences, at little workshops. Nobody attended. Then I had 3 people, then I had 5 people. Now I'm speaking in thousands of people. But I was desperate to get to a next level. So as a leader, as an employee, how desperate can you be to be changed? Because if you're not desperate for change, you will be changed. If you're not desperate for change, you will be changed, whether it's AI, whether it's younger Gen Z workers, etc., etc. And it comes from your acceleration, as we mentioned before, is about being agile, being a quick thinker. When you're seeing a problem, thinking, okay, how can I solve this problem? What experience can I use? What material can I use to solve these problems? Because one of the things I've realized now is that the world, whether it's globally, locally, nationally, internationally, etc., will begin to reward more and more people that solve problems. I've realized that. So say to yourself, let me be an intentional problem solver. Collaborative thinker. Collaborative thinker is what you're doing now. You're coming to a conference, rubbing your mind with like-minded people. But I tell some of my clients that I work with, particularly senior managers and leaders, for 1 week, I'm not sure it might be the same for you, but for 1 week, I would tell my clients, don't listen to the news. Just don't listen to the news. Because, it's either you're going to listen to negativity or you're going to listen to positivity. So be a collaborative thinker. Rub your mind with like-minded people. The previous speaker mentioned it. Community groups, listen to podcasts, reading articles, of course, reading books, etc., to rub your mind with like-minded people. So as I round up, we're now in the era of creative distinction. So it's now human, natural intelligence versus AI, artificial intelligence, to see who can create disruptive value at speed. So there's no time to be lazy, lackluster, and lethargic, but rather it's time to be deliberate, it's time to be distinctive, and it's time to be disruptive. We're in the era of creative distinction. We've seen it before. I mean, AI is growing at an alarming rate. One of my favorite films of all time is The Terminator. Anyone like The Terminator? I just love the film. I watched it when it first came out, and you just watch it with your eyes wide shut. But I actually watch it with my eyes wide open, and it's interesting what's coming. It's really interesting. We've seen with ChatGPT, etc., and other artificial intelligence that now it really is artificial intelligence versus human learners to see who can create disruptive value at speed. So there's no time to be lazy, lethargic, and lackluster, but rather it's time to be deliberate, it's time to be distinctive, and it's time to be disruptive. Deliberate, distinctive, and disruptive. So in this era of creative distinction, when there's disruption, disruption, it's now human, natural intelligence. There's levels of natural intelligence. For those that are parents here, your little son or your daughter, ask them, Sebastian or whoever, whatever the name is, draw a house. As a 3-year-old or 4-year-old, he or she has the ability to draw a house. But so has AI now. Do you understand? So it's human, natural intelligence versus AI, artificial intelligence. So your competition necessarily isn't your person that's sitting next to you, necessarily isn't Gen Z, necessarily isn't, your client or your fellow colleague, but rather it's human natural intelligence versus AI, artificial intelligence, to see who can create disruptive value at speed. That's the key, ladies and gentlemen. To see who can create disruptive value at speed. Value at speed. Value at speed. So there's no time to be lazy, lethargic, and lackluster, but rather it's time to be deliberate. Be deliberate with your value. Be deliberate with your leadership distinction. Be deliberate with having a state of mind rather than a mindset. It's time to be distinctive. When I'm talking about distinctive, it's about your personal brand, your brand distinction. Remember, no brand, no distinction. And it's time to be disruptive. Please, 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 please. Remember this, everything else I've said, all the other speakers and the speakers to come. Time to be disruptive. Because if you're not, a great man once said, if you're not disruptive, you're going to be disruptive. That's the essence of it. There's a song, I can't remember who sang it. It's an American singer-songwriter, Doris Day. She once sang, "Que sera, sera, whatever will be, will be." Obviously, I can't sing. I've been told I can sing, but I don't think I can sing. "Que sera, sera, whatever will be, will be. The future's not ours to see." I don't actually agree with that. The future is yours to see. So I really want to challenge you more than ever before, as you go back to your place of work, maybe this week or definitely next week or maybe the week after, think about, how can I be more disruptive? How can I add more value at speed? Because if you don't add value at speed, guess what? Somebody else is going to add value at speed. So as I round up, or as I finish up, we've heard about the yardstick employee. We've heard about the 3 pillars of leadership, of the yardstick 21st century leader. That leadership isn't about age, but rather it's about influence, impact, and fantastic. Oh, wow, good. Distinction. Don't know about your good audience. Distinction in leadership isn't a mindset. Distinction in leadership is a... Wow. Give yourself a round of applause. You guys are really good. Oh, gosh. Distinction in leadership isn't a mindset, it's a state of mind. And distinction in leadership isn't about me, myself, and I. Distinction in leadership is about him, her, and fantastic. Don't clap, though. You clap afterwards. So it's important to understand that you have to be legacy-minded. So for some of you, yes, you're going to be working in your industry maybe for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, whatever. But for some of you, you might change jobs. I've had clients who are 50, 60 that have changed industry, and there's nothing wrong with that. So remember, we've learned about also, or we've understood about creating your brand distinction, that your brand is what will distinguish you. No brand, no distinction. You've heard some of my values as a speaker. It's time management, it's excellence, it's adding value at a high level. We spoke about, the world economic jobs of the future. Sorry, the skills of the future. So think about, okay, if I look at the 25 skills of the future, how many of these skills can I incorporate? And it's not hard, it's not rocket science, but that will make you even a more value-driven leader. We've heard about that is now the era of creative distinction. It's now human, natural intelligence versus AI, artificial intelligence. So as leaders, we have to be deliberate, distinctive, and disruptive. So, as I round up, as I first started off, you as a lady, you as a gentleman, as an employee, as a leader, for me, I believe this is your yardstick. An employee is a leader of excellence, trailblazer and pioneer who constantly brings change to their organization. So as an employee, you don't have to follow with excellence, but rather you lead with excellence. You're a trailblazer and pioneer. That's the 3 C's. You're a critical thinker, you're more of a critical thinker, you're more of a collaborative thinker, and you're more of a creative thinker. You're a pioneer who constantly brings change to their organization. And how do you bring change to your organization? Is being deliberate, is being distinctive, and of course, is being disruptive. Ladies and gentlemen, you've been a wonderful audience. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
So dynamic, thank you very much. Please stay with us for some questions. But in Romania, we don't say good morning, we say bună dimineața.
Bună dimineața.
Bună dimineața. Excellent,
Thank you.
excellent. If you have questions, of course you have. Please. A microphone, yeah, here.
Hello, Onyi. I am very fond of your definition of branding,
Thank
so
you.
I took my time to write you a little question.
Thank you.
So, what are the best ways for you to identify companies or individuals that are willing to connect with me because of my personal brand on top of my current work experience?
Sorry, can you repeat the question again?
What are the best way to identify companies
Okay.
or individuals that are willing to connect with me because of my personal brand on top of my current work experience?
Fantastic question. Thank you. I think one of the things you have to do is find out what the mission and the vision of the organization is. And does it align with you? Is it people first? Is it important about climate change, about gender, etc., etc.? So think about organizations and individuals that have the same values as you, and then from then you can really think about collaboration.
Thank you.
The next one. More questions? There? Ah, there, also there.
Onyi, brother, thank you so much for this excellent, not job, but you gave yourself to us, and for that I'm very grateful. So thank you. You said that in order to be a good leader is to look out for our excellence in us. So in order to reach that point of thinking about ourselves that we are excellent exactly as we are, somebody from the company, from the family, whatever, need to mirror this type of high frequency. So my question is, how the companies, or if they are interested to bring this awareness so high to their companies, to their employees, because in some way they might lose some of them because they will know who they are and they will look forward for another path somehow. So is it the company is ready to open up itself to say to their employees that they are excellent as they are?
Yeah, very good question. Thank you. I think, being excellent is an intentional thing, and after a while, it will be noticed. So, you don't expect, as adults, we don't expect our senior managers to come and pat us on the back and say, well done, Onyi, you've been excellent in that sense. But I think when it becomes natural and and like I said, excellence and adding value goes hand in hand. So when you continually add that, I think I've known of organizations that have no choice but to raise the bar. And all the other people around have no choice to raise the bar too. But not everyone's going to want to raise the bar. But it's not your job to say, oh, why aren't you raising the bar? Why isn't she or why isn't he? You have to now be focused on continually raising the bar and going in the direction of the organization. And guess what? People will drop off. People will drop off. But then you as a leader, you would notice that he or she's not that excellent. Okay, let me be more of a coaching leader and ask them, do you need any help? What are some of the situations you're going for? Remember, it's about me, myself, and I. It's not about me, myself, and I. It's about him, her, and us. So being excellent, some people are going to obviously naturally drop off, but what will make you more of a cutting-edge leader if when you observe that this individual is dropping off, how can I now support him or her to become more excellent?
And the last one?
Thank you.
The last one?
Can you hear me all right? Lovely. First of all, thank you so much for the presentation. That was amazing. I was wondering about the C in collaborative thinking. You mentioned that it's very, very important to surround yourself with like-minded people. Isn't it just as important to surround yourself with people that have a different perspective? So the people that are not just as like-minded as you are, and to hear their perspective as well.
110%. Yes, of course. I mean, I'm not saying that we have to be tribalistic with our own individual tribes, etc. Of course, have people around you that have, different learnings, different experience, maybe different political, religious, social beliefs, etc. But I think for me, ensure that, particularly if the person's, pardon the phrase, a low-level thinker, you don't want to get dragged down to that level. I think that's the distinction. We don't want to be at this stage of our career, and because we have people that don't maybe see what we see, they now take us back. is all about forward movement in that sense and not being guilty. So yes, please surround yourself with people of different opinions, etc. You can have a different opinion, but still be a peak performer that works at a high level, if that makes sense. Yeah? Excellent.
Thank you very much. Vă
Thank you so
mulțumim
much.
tare mult.
Thank you.
So, bună dimineața.
Bună dimineața.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
You didn't try that one with the bună ziua, because it's
Bună
like
ziua.
bună ziua
Yeah.
right now. It's bună ziua right now.
Bună ziua right now.
That's correct. Thank you so much. Poftă
Thank you.
bună.